Hello, everyone. You're listening to your Tuesday afternoon alternative with Dr. J. I am so excited. I'm here with John and Amelie of 7000 Apart. John, Amelie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having us.
So I'm just really curious. The name 7000 Apart is unique, but I guess there's a story behind it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So I'm originally from Stockholm, Sweden. And when I was 17, I decided I wanted to be an exchange student in the big United States of America. And so I came over to the US. I ended up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, of all places. And at Preble High School, I met John.
So we met in music theory class. It was my senior year of high school. And we just became friends, and then we became more than friends, and we ended up dating all of my senior year. And at the end of the year, we had to decide whether or not we wanted to stay together or break up. And as you may guess, we decided to stay together.
Yeah. So we ended up being in a long distance relationship for 3 years.
Oh my.
Where we were 7,000 kilometers apart from each other. And so it was during that time that we started 7,000 Apart as an online project. We did like YouTube videos, and we would post on Instagram and all of those things. And it was just a way for us to still make music, even though we were so far away from each other.
Yeah. I'm sorry, John, were you going to say something?
No, that's you're good.
even gosh, thinking about this in terms of that, the challenges of any long distance relationship, but the challenges in being 7,000 kilometers apart, right? Distant, that had to be challenging.
Oh, it was like the 3 most difficult years of our lives, I think.
Yeah.
And it was really hard. We got to see each other twice a year, normally for like a month at a time. But yeah, we definitely had some challenges, some hardships. We almost broke up a couple of times. But eventually, after those 3 years, we finally got to get married. We got married over in Sweden, and then I moved here to the US, and we've been doing music ever since. In person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm also curious, as you guys were dating, or right, of course, John, she's like the cool exchange student, right? You're the cool exotic American student.
Yeah.
I'm curious, did music play a role in your relationship?
Yeah, so we actually met in music theory class, and so that's how we started getting to know each other. We would sit opposite of each other, and John was like the really music theory nerd in the class, and I knew a decent amount. And so like we were like the 2 top performing students pretty much of the class. And so like obviously that just led to us talking, and we would get out of class before the bell would ring, so like there was some time to talk, or John would sit down by a piano and play, and I was really impressed by that. He played some of my favorite like composers like Yurima and stuff. And I was just like, whoa. And then I got to sing in class to like show what instrument I used. And I think John.
Yeah. It was definitely like, I think right in the beginning, we were kind of interested in becoming friends just because of music. But then we realized we had a lot more in common aside from music. And the first year of dating, we really didn't focus on music as much as just like getting to know each other. And
we just sit and talk for hours about everything.
Just like cultural differences, and like there were so many things to talk about. So so we just like, I'd say the first year we focused primarily on that, but we did do music.
We definitely like played a bit together. We played together on our first date and stuff like that. And so
I'm curious, what was it about music that drew both of you to it, right? Amelie, whether you're in America or back home in Sweden, what is it just about music that speaks to you? And John, I'm curious for you, what is it about music that drew you in, right? Let's be honest, it's a challenging profession. It's a challenging industry. Why pursue music?
Yeah, so for me, I grew up around music. My mom's a vocal teacher, like a voice teacher. And so I have always been singing. I've always been, the singer in my class and in my school. I always got like the solos and the musical roles and whatever. And so for me, it's just been a very big part of my identity and a big part of who I am. And it's been the way for me to like deal with my emotions and also have that one thing that makes me feel really good and it makes me who I am. So I've always been singing and always will be singing. And so that's kind of how I grew up. And then meeting John, you kind of had a different upbringing.
I grew up very much in the church. My grandpa was a pastor and my grandma was my piano teacher when I was like 4 years old. And I hated music like all the way up until I was 11 because my parents were like, you know, you need to take piano lessons from your grandma and like all these things. And I'm like, I don't want to take lessons from grandma. I want to go play sports. And so it took me a long time, but I found contemporary Christian music, and that kind of got me into that got me through a lot of things, and it was a lot cooler than hymns and, you know, like
rock music and stuff,
church music and stuff like that. So I was like, it was still within the realm of that. So it was like growing up, it was really cool, but I was also a very shy kid. And so I grew up playing music in church, and that was kind of my way of like being able to express myself in front of people. And it helped me become a lot more confident and kind of figure out who I was in a whole different way. And so I think when I was 11 or 12, I was like, I want to be that for someone else. You know, I want to make music that can like impact other people if they're struggling, if they're super introverted or whatever, if whatever they're struggling with, so they can, deal with their emotions and maybe think about things they wouldn't have thought about before. And that's been the main thing.
And so like when we met, I saw that in John, and I've always like, I have obviously singers that I look up to, and being able to express my emotions through singing along with them and listening to lyrics and all of that. We definitely have the same approach to music in that way, that we want to be those artists that you kind of look up to, and that write about things that are very like real and not just like cute love songs, but also we talk a lot about mental health in our music, and also like we want to both do songs that make you feel the sad emotions, but also write songs that really encourages you and empowers you to just go out there and, you know, seize the day or whatever.
I've been listening to the music. John was kind enough to share some music with me. And then, of course, you jump to the streaming services, and I've been listening to your music. And I think I was struck by not only an effort to be authentic and real while dealing with pretty heavy subject matter, right? But also, I want to say, I think there's a lot of positivity to your music, right? Obviously, a song like Hope springs to mind, which I think, haha, is clearly a hopeful song. I think not just Hope, but I think your other music as well has not only a willingness to deal with pretty serious subject matter, but doesn't do so in a dark or depressing way, or doesn't have tones like that. Is that something that you purposefully do, or is that just organic, how the music comes through you?
I think it's a combination of both. I think we are very happy people generally, but we also like have dealt with a lot of stuff. I mean, especially going from the long distance, we had to deal with a lot of different emotions like anxiety and depression. And now, especially with the pandemic, I was struggling a lot. I'm a very like social and extroverted person. So like being so isolated was extremely hard for me, and having to pivot our whole like career and everything. I was going through some really hard things, but I definitely, at the end of the day, I know that things are going to get better. And I've always been that person that's like, you know, no matter what happens, and if you're at your lowest lows, at least the only way to go is up, and things will get better. And you need to take care of yourself, and self-care is huge. And so, I would say it's both natural, but it also like is very, we do think about it, and we make sure that like, yes, we write sad songs, but we want to have a little glimmer of something positive in it. And we also want to write songs that just make people dance.
What do you say to that question, John?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say like music has always been sort of therapy for me as well. Like I people quite often ask like if you didn't do music, what else you would you do? And like I do music no matter I would do music no matter what, whether or not it was my career or not. It's just like how I express myself. And I think I've always had as well that like hopeful side of things. Like I always want to believe the best, and I always want to think that there's hope out there, even if I don't necessarily see it in the moment. And so for me, I think it's just become like a therapy and like a diary almost. And so yeah, I think it is intentional in a lot of ways, but it's also just like us just being ourselves. And I think the more that we've been writing and the more we've really focused on creating music to like put out into the world, the more we've like really uh, been kind of intentional about that in a lot of ways. Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
Well, I mean, so it almost sounds like music is your calling. Music is something you feel called to do, or music is something that you feel is not only important, but expresses some of the concerns and challenges that you have.
Very much. I think it's so important to let people know that they're not alone with what they're feeling. And music is one of those mediums that like people can really take it in, and without it being like, you know, shoved down their throat, you know, but you can listen to a song and you can listen to it again and you can get different things out of it. And no matter, like, depending on how you're feeling that day, you can take something away from it. And for us, it's like, this is what we are good at, you know? And so it's both like what we're feeling called to because of who we are and what we want to, how we want to affect the world, but also like the talents that we have and that we're able to do music through it. And there's so much more to music than just, you know, playing and writing. And like being involved with charity work or whatever, like it's a lot of things that, you know, like it's such a multifaceted line of work that it's so interesting to us, and there's so much to do, and but it's still at its core, it's about the music, and it's about
affecting culture and
and wanting to
yeah.
like, if we can help one person, we've done our job, you know.
Oh no, I think that's laudable, and that's really, really a positive way to approach it. I'm also fascinated. So were you writing together? Were you guys creating music while you were still here before graduation, Amelie?
Not too much. I had like barely written anything. I've always just been singing. Like I've been singing, you know, like show tunes and, you know, the big Adele songs. And like, that's kind of how I grew up. I didn't really know that I was a writer at all. And I was more of a science girl. And, but then I met John, and John had a band, and like he was writing all the time. And so I kind of started dabbling a little bit, but it wasn't until we were in long distance and I took like a songwriting class, like a night school thing. And that's when I started learning how to write. And so we started writing a little bit together, like when we were in long distance, when we, like the times that we would see each other. I think we wrote our first couple songs, but it was really when after we got married and moved in together, that's when we really started writing.
So how does that process work for the two of you?
Yeah, it's really changed. One thing that we've realized about ourselves is that we're both very different people. Like we're kind of the opposites from each other in a lot of ways. And that's been actually really cool. But it's taken a while to realize how cool it's been. So yeah, so it's taken a while to like really figure out a process that's worked for us. So largely, I tend to start a lot of the songs, and just because I'm always writing, but because I'm always writing, I mean, not all the songs are good. And so I bring the songs I think are the best to Amelie, and then we work.
And you usually don't finish songs.
Not
like
necessarily.
Yeah, it's usually like an idea or like a verse and a chorus or something.
Or at least it's a decently solid idea that I know that for sure Amelie is going to make a lot better, just for a lot of different reasons. And
yeah, since I'm the primary singer, like I have a whole different melody language, and I can do a lot more with my voice. And then also I am very much like that,
making things singable as well.
Yeah, and I'm also very much a type A person where it's like, yeah, I want to get things done, and I'm really good at like puzzling things together. Like to me, like a song is almost like a puzzle. And so I take John's part, and then I'm like, okay, what is missing? What is the whole story? What are we trying to say with the song? And then I like find the missing lines, and I find the missing pieces. And so we usually finish songs together. So that's one way that we're writing. The second way we write is with co-writers. So that is really good because having a third person in the room, we have to put on our like songwriting hats. Being in a relationship and working together, it's hard to sometimes differentiate between work, like between 7000 Apart and Amelie and John, right? And so when we have a third person in the room, it becomes proper work, and we both behave.
It becomes proper, like we're sitting down to write a song, instead of like, oh, I'm getting distracted because we have to go make dinner, or whatever, like whatever distraction that we might have. It's very much like, okay, there's someone else in the room, so
so we have to give them our undivided attention.
So it's very much different things, and different ways of doing it, but it's really great.
What comes first? It sounds like, John, it sounds like a melody or something on like piano or guitar probably comes to you first.
It really, I'd say it can be anything. Like I actually studied audio production as well, and at university, so I do production work as well with our songs. And so sometimes I'll make like a track and work on that. Sometimes I'll be in the shower and have an idea and like be singing it over and over until I can go do a voice memo of it. Sometimes it's, sometimes you're playing guitar,
sometimes
piano.
You just write poetry.
Sometimes I just write poetry. So it's like, there's a lot of different ways of getting to it. And I'd say the best songs that come out are the ones that, you just like, it feels easy and natural, and like you just like do most of it within like 30 minutes or like an hour maybe. Like I feel like that is like the best natural song, but then there's always the songs that you go back and you edit over and over and over. And I think both ways are pretty valid, but it just depends on the day, I guess.
Oh, sure. How would you describe that moment when okay, this is a good idea that I want to pursue, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's
so obvious with John. Like he gets like giddy like a little kid, and he's can I show you the song? Can I show you the song? He gets like super excited. It's really cute.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a melody thing or if it's something like, typically, I think as a songwriter, you're kind of cursed because you have to get a song in your head that only that is stuck in your head. And so you'll like sing it somewhere random, and then people think you're crazy, but it's like, no, this is a thing, So it's like, you want to share it with at least one other person, so you're not crazy, kind of. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So I love that passion though, that you realize, okay, oh, this is interesting for whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's melody or rhythm or just the way the song feels to you. Right, because I love how you talked about that organic feeling, right? That idea of this is natural. But so many musicians over the years have mentioned to me that there's this particular moment when they realize, oh, this is a good idea, as opposed to the million or thousands of not so good ideas that I tried to force fit. But there's this moment of realization where, oh, this is cool, or this is interesting. And I'm always curious, like, how does that feel to a musician when you have that, like, that aha moment?
Yeah, I think a lot of it also happens like when we get to play the songs in front of people. And because sometimes it's their reaction that makes it, oh, this song is actually this song is good. Like, because like sometimes we get so up in our heads and we think nothing is good, or we think everything is good, and it's hard to differentiate because you're so close to the project. And so playing in front of an audience, or like in front of friends, or
just
whatever,
sharing a recording,
or just sharing a recording, whatever it is, like that can really be the aha moment as well. It doesn't necessarily have to come from us. Sometimes it comes from outside.
I'm typically excited about everything.
Yes.
But Amelie is very self-critical. So like, I think for you, it's more so like, for example, our song Blank Check, it was the first single off of our first album. And we both thought it was like an okay song, but we were like, you know, we didn't like, it wasn't our favorite song necessarily because it's not the most complex song to sing or play. So it wasn't like the most challenging song, you know, but our producer and our a lot of friends and stuff, they were all like, this is the best song from the album. This is great. This is great. It's gonna
we're
do
like,
so well.
you sure?
And we're like, really? I feel like this song is way better, you know? And like,
but they were obviously right.
They were right.
It became the first single, and it has the most streams, and it's been the most requested song and stuff.
So you don't always know like what actually is going to do well, even if you have a song that you enjoy a lot. So yeah,
that's a really good point that you both are making, that the song that you think, oh, this is the hit, or this is the really cool, clever song, maybe no one's attracted to that. Maybe they're attracted to the song that you almost threw away.
Yeah. That can happen for sure.
Yeah, and that's I feel like that happens quite a lot, actually. Yeah, it's tricky.
Tell us about, okay, so you're collaborating on music. Amelie comes back to the US, right? You are now a band. Were you a band prior to your return to the US, Amelie, or is that something that happened after you arrived?
So we started 7000Apart just as an online thing, but we did get like a couple of gigs in the US and a couple of gigs in Sweden. So we had played together, but it was like not a ton. And so when I came to the US, we were like, now we're going to play. But I didn't have my work permit yet, so we couldn't like get paid for shows.
Right.
And so we just did all the open mics that we could find and all the like free gigs we could do. And so that was like the first like four to 6 months. We just did like a few like open mics a week. We would write and we would record and we would just like work on things. And like, yeah, that was kind of our main focus. I did some like classes as well, some university classes in music, just to like get better at production and stuff like that. But it was when I got my work permit that we really started booking and started playing properly.
And tell me about recording the first album.
Yeah. And so before we recorded the first album, we actually did an EP, and we recorded it in John's parents' basement. And so this was back when we were not really sure what direction we were going musically. And so it was 5 songs, and all 5 songs had different genres, pretty much. And we made it all ourselves. John produced and mixed it and mastered it, like everything. And it was a great learning process. But then we felt like we wanted something more real, more proper. So in 2018, we started
more at the core of the basic, let's go back to the basics type of thing.
Very much. And so in 2018, we joined this songwriting group.
Yeah, so we did this songwriting group called Song a Week online, where basically you put up a song every single week, and whether or not it's done or it doesn't need to be fully produced out or anything. And so that was in 2018, and we just wrote a song every single week and had a demo of it. And at that same time, we met an artist coach in Sweden, and she really just helped us to slow us down and like, okay, so I know you want to release this year, but I think you need to like really work on it, and we need to make sure it's done properly. So
you find a good producer and
we spent a lot of time on it, and we ended up basically going over to Sweden, and we did a Kickstarter campaign. So our fans and friends and family all helped to fund the first project. And during the Kickstarter campaign, we were also in the studio for a month in Sweden. So we spent an entire month in Sweden just like recording the album. And it was kind of it was an interesting time because we were like, okay, we don't know if we can afford this. This is our first time doing this, so we don't know what to expect, but we're just gonna do it and see what happens, I guess. And it was really just a stripped back version of like, okay, where are we if we remove all the, you know, software instruments and the electric guitars, and let's just focus on songwriting and just on like the basics of if we were doing this live. And so that's really what the first album was just like, go back to the basics. Let's do this very minimally. Let's focus on Amelie's voice, focus on these things, and have something to grow from that's going to be timeless. And we can look back on, you know, 10 years from now and be like, oh, we could have released that this year, and that would have been like normal, or it would have sounded cool, you know? So.
Well, taking the time to craft and learn your craft, right?
Yeah.
Learn what you want something to sound like. I regularly talk to students in courses I teach about popular music, and they're like, yeah, folks just come into the studio, they all sit around in a room and play, right? That's how a song is made, right? Oh dear. Here's a list of documentaries here. let's watch, you know, surely you've seen Get Back and you realize, but no, and I don't mean to be unkind to students who aren't here to defend themselves, but there's a lot of assumptions that are made about how music is created. And even though you both were interested in music and had been studying music, you still went through a process where you learned a great deal more about how to actually use the studio to its fullest extent.
Absolutely.
And ourselves too. Like what is it that we want like, I think that's the big thing as artists too. Like, you, just because the Beatles sounded one way doesn't mean they don't like other genres, you know, at that time too. Or just because an artist does a certain genre doesn't mean that they're not influenced by other genres. And so it's important to, like, if you're an artist, to also think about, okay, well, how can I make this in a way that it's going to be cohesive? There's going to be a red thread. It's not going to sound like, you know, like 8 different artists put like produce something.
It shouldn't sound like it was made in someone's parents' basement.
Yeah. It should be something that sounds very like there's been thought put into this, and it's something that, is just like thought through, I guess, a bit.
Well, it's a grand and glorious tradition, Amelie, to record in your parents' garage or basement.
Absolutely. And if that's your sound, go for it, you know, but that is not what we decided that we wanted to sound like.
At what point did you know that okay, we don't want to sound like a quote unquote garage band, we want to sound this other way?
I think it's
how
because
did you get there?
I think listening to artists that we enjoyed, like for us, we like the very crisp, the very high quality vocals and instruments. And so, like, listening to the artists that we enjoyed, that was the sound. And we've always been like into what is like the charts, but the very like real part, like the Adeles, the Sam Smiths, the
Whitney Houston, going back like a long time ago,
where like the vocals are in focus, and it's still like real instruments are like included. And so for us, it was like, okay, let's just put ourselves in a box for this album where we focus on the voice, the songwriting, and the basic instruments that we want to use. And for us, that was like acoustic guitar, bass, drums, and we had some cello and some horns also.
A flugel horn.
A flugel horn.
Nice.
Very important.
Very important to our sound.
It gives a really interesting sound. It has a lot of resonance.
Yes. And so for us, that was like, that's how we decided to do our first album, was just like, let's take it back to the basics, make something that we can be proud of forever. And yeah, and that was something that we discussed together, and we made, you make playlists on Spotify where you put songs that you're influenced by, that you want as your reference mixes. And then we had this coach from Sweden that really like guided us through that thought process as well.
I also have to think, you mentioned a few minutes ago, Amelie, the idea of doing all of those open mic nights or open mic opportunities. That had to be a great way to also develop, what do we want to do as a band on stage?
Yeah.
What do we want to look like? What's our stage presence? What's our just experience for the audience?
Yeah.
As the front woman, I'm curious how you went through that kind of thought or that kind of reflection. Because I've seen the videos. John was very kind to send a bunch of links, and of course it's not hard to suddenly go to YouTube and fall down that rabbit hole. But I think you have a very powerful voice.
Thanks.
But you also have a real powerful presence.
Thank you.
And you could easily manifest that in a bunch of different ways, right? And there are artists who like, okay, I'm going to be in your face, or there are artists who are going to be more subdued with that. How did you guys figure out your stage presence?
Yeah, so I think when it comes to the open mics and stuff, for us, it was very much because you just plug it and play, and you have like 2 songs to get the audience attention. And for that, you kind of have to be on it. You have to have a lot of energy. You have to kind of disrupt the space a little bit. So sometimes we would, play the really up-tempo songs, try to have people sing along. And sometimes we would ignore the microphones if it was like a nice room and be like, hey, we're going to try to do this completely unplugged. So we need everyone to be quiet, and we're just going to sit on the edge of the stage and sing to you guys. And so it's about like figuring out how to grab people's attention was a huge part. And also just getting used to the stage and getting used to bad audio and not a great monitor mix, because you don't have time to sound check. You just go up and play. And so it really like hardens you a little bit in a good way. Like, and it also helps with, I used to be so nervous and so anxious every time I got on stage, and I would be so shaky and all that, because I do care a lot about my performance, and I've struggled with performance anxiety pretty much my entire life. And so to just have to go up and just do it without much preparation, that was such a good practice space for me. And again, like finding your stage language and all that, to me, that's something we've like worked on. And we have this coach in Nashville who's a live stage coach, and she's been super helpful with that as well. But I think just doing it a lot and daring to look people in the eyes and dare to really connect, I think is huge. And to me, like, I have a lot of energy, and if the audience gives me just like 10% back, I will take that and 10 double it, like I feed off the audience very much, because I am a very extroverted person. And so I will give back like tenfold what the audience gives to me, just kind of naturally, I guess.
What about for yourself, John? Right? It's one thing to just be a guy with an acoustic guitar or a guy with the guitar. How did you approach kind of developing as an artist in terms of your stage persona or stage presence?
Yeah, I mean,
I used to be
a lead singer, so like I'm kind of used to like just doing that as well. And so I think for me, it's been kind of figuring out how to support and lift Amelie's performance as well, and just really doing it in a way that, like, I don't know, just like really where the attention should be on the stage, because like people can be very easily distracted. And so like that's something we've worked on. And yeah, if I'm doing a guitar solo, I'll go up front and like show that I'm doing a guitar solo, or like if we're playing with drums and bass, same types of things, like, okay, where should the focus of the audience be at any given moment? And that's been like something that just takes time, and like also learning from coaches and rehearsing and like practicing it a lot, and just making sure that you're like comfortable enough on stage that you can do those things and not feel like, oh, I'm going to trip and fall, and that's going to be, I mean, it'll still be funny, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good
It'll be
moment.
a good moment for the audience, as long as you can save it, but yeah.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to your Tuesday afternoon alternative on WUDR Flyer Radio. We're here with John and Amelie of 7000 Apart. I also have to ask you guys, okay, so you've got an album, and it seems like Blank Check was the song that got the most attention from that album.
Yes, that's correct.
I'm curious what you think of the song now that you've recorded music after that. Do you still feel the same way about the song?
Yeah, good question. I think it still like has that space in our hearts, and because we do play a lot, like we had 93 shows last year, and so it doesn't happen that we always bring a piano, because it's a lot easier to bring guitars and to set that up and to be able to fit into any space. And so we don't get to play Blank Check a ton. And so when we do get to play it, and when people request it, it's really, really cool. And especially since it was placed in a MTV show last year, that was such a cool thing for us, and it gave it a little extra boost, and we were really proud. It's kind of like your babies, your songs are your little babies, so you're like, oh yeah, I'm so proud of you, little Blank Check, and it's still some people's favorite song. But it's also like, we wrote that in 2018. That was 4 years ago. And so we've written songs after that we are a lot more excited about and that we're so ready to share with the world, and songs that we think are better and portray more of what it is that we want to say and what it is that we want to share with the world. And so, yes, we're still proud of it, but we're so excited for these songs that are coming out this year.
I'm also curious about the song Hope.
Yeah.
It seems to me that we could use more positivity in the world. I'm always saying there's enough negativity in the universe. I don't need to add to it.
Yes. Couldn't agree more. Yeah, that
but
song
I'm curious
was,
about what hope means to you, and if anyone has commented about that song.
Definitely. So Hope was written in the beginning of 2020. So this was back before COVID started. It was when the wildfires were happening in Australia. And we're like, oh, what a horrible start of this year, but it can only get better from here. This has to be the only catastrophe that's going to happen this year, right? And the songwriter we wrote with, her name's Jade, and she is in a duo with an Australian woman. And so for her, it really hit home, and she was very deeply affected by it. And so we just talked about what was going on, and we were struggling at the time, just trying to figure out our place in the world, and trying to figure out what it is that we wanted to say and what we wanted to do. And so it came from that space of yes, the world can seem really dark sometimes, and we are as humans, we're bound to go through some really, really hard times. But if you open yourself up, there's always hope to be found. And that doesn't mean that it's going to fix everything. And that doesn't mean that everything is going to be fine. But it means that if you hold on to that, you can hold on to the notion that things are going to get at least a little better, and that good things are on its way.
And also that pain is always going to be there. And those types of things it's just part of life. And the first line is, pain is a wave. First it'll hit you, and anxiety, depression, anything, first it'll hit you and it'll feel like a huge deal, but eventually, or grief or anything, it'll hit you, but then eventually it'll feel a little bit better. If you just let go through it. And quite often in life, I think we get caught up in the moment of that grief or that anxiety or whatever, instead of realizing that, okay, we just have to get through it.
Yeah.
And quite often that's how it is in life.
There's
you're
a
struggling with
movement.
something,
Yeah.
like things will get better.
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
a movement to emotions, you know, they're not stagnant. Like you won't feel the way you're feeling forever. And like, I guess that's what we were trying to say with the song. And we wanted to make it very clear that it was about hope. And yeah, we did not know back in January of 2020 that it kind of became our anthem throughout 2020 and 2021.
Sure.
And something that we could come back to and share with the world. We started streaming online, and so we would share it with people there, and a lot of people felt helped from it. And so,
and I mean, we need the songs just
yeah,
as much as
we don't just
know,
write for others, we write
it's
for
a great
ourselves.
reminder
Yeah.
for ourselves too when we perform them.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a great point, that everyone can use a reminder
Mhm.
of hopefulness.
Yes.
So what's a song early on that captivated, and it obviously may be different songs for each one of you,
Yeah.
that early on you're like, oh, I want to do that. I want to make music, or I want to perform music. What was a song early on that spoke to you?
Oh, for me, I think so. I grew up listening to Evanescence, was my favorite band growing up, and there's a song called Hello that's pretty kind of a deep cut from the first album. She never performs it live, but the emotion that I could feel through her voice and the way that she performed it, and this very difficult subject matter that song is about. It was about her sister dying when she was really, really young. And I think that just showed what music can be and what emotions can be shown through music. And when I was singing it, I could feel, you know, even if it was just a fraction of what she felt, but I could feel that just by singing that melody and singing those words.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really impactful song for me.
yeah, for me, it was largely a band called Switchfoot, and I had a lot of songs from them that really made me realize it's what I wanted to do. But I guess it was the same thing that drew me in, was like the vulnerability and the honesty of the songs, and the fact that they were like, you know, you could tell that like it meant something to them, and that means something to you as a listener, I guess, as well, when someone is like being that vulnerable and being that open. And so to me, it was just like, it affected me so much, and it helped me in so many different ways that I just was like, I want to do this. Plus, I mean, getting to travel sounds awesome. Like, you know, getting to actually perform like and write music and all these things, that sounds really fun. If like, I guess for a long time I didn't realize that those were even options for a job. So I was like, oh, cool, that's awesome. Like it feels like it fits all these different things that I love to do, and yeah, helping people as well, which is really important to me as well. So it's just kind of like perfect things, I guess, and Switchfoot was the catalyst
Yeah.
for all that. Yeah.
If somebody heard your music for the first time, what would you hope they would take away from that experience?
I think that they're not alone, that there are people out there that are struggling as well. There are people that are going through hard times, and that
We're going through hard times too.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's what I mean, like that, like even if you're a musician and it looks so nice on social media and all of that, like everyone is struggling sometimes. And the album that we're working on, it's going to be called Feel Your Feelings. And I think that is a big part of what we're trying to do, is to let people feel their feelings. So whatever that is, because it's okay to feel what you're feeling. And again, like no feeling is final. And so, but being able to feel those things that you are feeling helps with moving on as well. Instead of suppressing it, then it's always going to be there. But if you can feel, you know, if it's grief, if it's sorrow, whatever it is, like you are allowed to feel those things. You don't have to be happy-go-lucky all the time, but we're also hoping with our music that we can inspire you to inspire and empower you to do what it is that you love to do and to go out in the world and just
Be yourself.
Be yourself. Yeah. And that you don't have to apologize for that.
Would you add anything else to that, John?
I mean, there's a lot of things, but I think just really just that we're being honest and vulnerable as well. And that, yeah, I would say that just really ties in with what Amelie is saying, but that we're being honest and vulnerable, and like that it's okay to get help. It's okay to, yeah, like everyone struggles. Like I think with Blank Check, you know, like it was very clear that song too was like about a time we almost broke up, and it was like it's just the more honest I think we are, I hope that people recognize that and realize they can be honest and vulnerable as well, and put themselves out there and not have to bottle everything up inside all the time.
Would you have any advice for someone who's thinking of becoming a musician?
Oh, so much. So much. I mean, we've been doing this for a while now, and you learn so much along the way, and there's so much to learn. Like it can be really overwhelming. And I think, but if you put your music in the center of things and let the other things dictate, or like be dictated by that, like yes, it's good to like learn how social media works, and yes, it's good to learn how booking works and all of that, but at the core there should be your music, and also just do it. I think people are so scared. Like some people like put out anything and like all demos and everything, and that can be good, but sometimes like you also need to show what it is that you want. You need to put out in the world what it is that you want to put out in the world, right? But you also need to put it out there, because otherwise no one's gonna know it. And so like daring to actually like start putting yourself out there, start playing shows, because it takes a while to feel comfortable on stage. And the more you can play in front of different audiences, the more you're going to learn about yourself and about playing live and all those things. And I think just share with the world what you're doing, and eventually like the right people are going to find you. And I don't know. Do you have anything else? And treat it like, if you want it to be your profession, treat it like a profession, like treat it like a job, like start a company, make sure your papers are in order, make sure you like have an accountant,
do it legally,
do things legally, you know, like, and that helped us a lot. Just
then,
always like,
yeah, I mean, like what Amelie said, you have to focus on the music, because like you don't like work on the music.
Yeah.
So no matter what that is, like you need to keep growing in your craft. But I think a big thing that's like something that a lot of people get caught up with is like, they think, oh, if I do it for 3 years and nothing happens, and by nothing happens, I mean like I'm not able to do this full time, or whatever your goal is, that, oh, it's the end and I should give up, you know? And the thing is like persistence and growing, like continuing to grow and continuing to learn, are like the two keys for music. Like you're going to get knocked down a lot of times. Like it's going to be hard, but like it's being an entrepreneur. Like if you think about it, like if I were starting a restaurant, like my first couple of years are not going to be easy, and it's going to take time for it to grow. And it's the same way with music. It's just, you're selling audio waves,
Yeah.
you know, and so it just takes time, and it takes persistence, but continuing to grow. And I think a lot of people either get caught up in the fact that they're just going to quit because it's too hard, or they just like don't continue to grow and don't continue to try to get better at the things, because since it is an entrepreneurial thing as well, you also have to, you can't exclusively focus on the music, and a lot of people just want to do that, and you have to really think about it in a lot more ways than just that, because at least in terms of being an artist, or but there are also a lot of jobs within it too. So like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of options. And I think people get caught up between all those things and like, oh, if I'm not Beyonce, you know, then I'm not successful, or,
Yeah.
and yeah.
Did you have the support of like a local music community when you started?
So we have a funny story. So when we first got to, it's kind of a sad story, but when we first got to Green Bay, like, yes, there were definitely some supportive people, and there were like some open mics and some venues that were really helpful and great. But there was also, I don't know how much I should get into it, but there was this one person that, guess didn't like us for some reason, and would tell all of their friends to not hang out with us, and like, and that person was a big part of the music community locally, and they had a lot of friends who we were trying to get in contact with, because we've always been networking and we've always been wanting to meet people for coffee, and we just love meeting new people, and we always think that you can learn from each other, right? But yeah, this person made our first year pretty hard, because they would tell everyone not to hang out with us and would spread lies about us.
Oh
and
dear.
yeah, it was really rough. And so we weren't very lucky in the beginning, but now we are very interested in, and we want to work towards building a music community in Wisconsin, especially. And so we're trying to be in connection with as many people as we can and create our own little community.
We're trying to help artists kind of in the ways that we
weren't helped
as much when we started. But
yeah. We want to show that it's possible as well.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think it was just kind of in an awkward, you know, Wisconsin was very much in the punk scene and metal scene. And
now it's very much about the cover bands.
But when those genres kind of started dying a little bit in terms of being super popular, I think like people got kind of salty and kind of down on themselves. And so I think, you know, it's music scenes don't have to be like, it's amazing if they're a great thing, like for you and for the scene, but if they're not a great thing, like it's okay to you don't have to just focus on that. You can travel, you can
we started streaming in 2020 and when things shut down, and we found an amazing community online. And so there are other communities, so if you can't find it where you're from, seek elsewhere, like join some Discord groups, join some Reddit threads, check Facebook groups have been huge for us.
Sites.
Yes, live streaming sites, and you can always build your own community.
That's a really great message. I think don't restrict yourself, don't limit yourself to just what's physically happening in your town or your community. And I also love the fact that what you're doing is building music community, right? Being supportive of other musicians and being helpful in any way that you can, right?
Yeah.
That's building community.
Yes.
Did it strike you as that was not just important for yourselves to do, right? But in terms of actually being someone who could uplift or who could support other musicians around you, did that factor into your considerations there?
Hugely. I mean, we didn't have a lot of artists in the Green Bay area that we could look up to, and we didn't know anyone who did music full time, really. And so now that we are doing this full time, we really want to share our experiences, and we want to share what we've learned, and we want to make sure that it's not as hard for others as it was for us.
And just because there's also, I mean, like where I grew up in Green Bay, like it's a very talented community, but it's just people don't really know what to do. And so I think, yeah, it's just kind of a natural thing that we want to help people too, but it's also very much like as we're working on this, we also want to help other people too, because I think it's way more fun too if there's more musicians in the area.
And a rising tide, you know, lifts all ships. So like if we can help other people do well in the Wisconsin music community and
beyond Wisconsin too.
But generally, and like that's going to be beneficial for us, you know, like if we can put together a show with us and some other bands, the next time like they will invite us and all of that. It's
supporting each other is
yeah.
always good. I mean, I think that's a very good, like in Nashville, everyone like treats each other with a lot of respect, just because like you never know who's gonna like blow up the next week. And
yeah,
like I think it's good to do it like in a genuine way as well. But like I think it is like very true. Like anyone could really blow up, especially with TikTok and all these, like these algorithmic,
yeah.
movements of social media. So it's just like, it's important to just treat everyone with respect just because of being a good human. But I think also like, it's good to try to help people out. Yeah.
I'm curious if you manage your own social media.
Yeah, most of it. We actually have some help with our TikTok right now. We have a high schooler as an intern, and she's incredible. And so
I love it.
Yeah, so she has that Gen Z perspective on TikTok that we just don't have. And it's hard to keep up, especially with TikTok, because you're supposed to post like once, 1 to 3 times a day. And
right.
It's so hard for us to keep up with that. And and also our bassist is helping with us with some videos for YouTube as well. He's editing some vlogs and stuff and helping to capture content, because we realized that we were just so overwhelmed by all the business sides and everything. And their names are Carly and Charlie. They're helping us a ton, and just like being able to ask for help, I think is huge in this industry too. And that you, like, if you are in a band, like make sure you split up the responsibilities, and that people do what they're good at, but also like that not like one person does everything, because it's impossible to keep up with everything that you're supposed to do. And so, yeah, we're loving to involve them, and they're becoming a bigger part of the band. And it's a lot more fun, because then we also can bounce ideas off of them, and it's not just the two of us.
Yeah.
Well, we're just about out of time. So I've got to ask, what are you doing now? I assume that you guys are hitting the road. You're going to do some shows. Could you talk a little bit about touring and what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are right now on our May tour, and we are coming to Dayton.
Woohoo!
We're so excited. We're coming to
I hope to see you there.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that would be so much fun if you came. We're super, super excited. We're playing with some local bands. John is the one who booked, so I'm like, you blew up. Here
So
it's with Kate Carter and Mike Bankhead. So super fun. We're friends with Mike. He's super sweet and super excited.
He's phenomenal. Mike is a really thoughtful songwriter.
Oh, he's so sweet. He's so sweet. And so we're super excited for that. So that's our Ohio stuff. And then we're going to be pretty much all over the Midwest.
We're in 17 cities, I think, in 5 states here in May. And we might have a new thing coming as well at the end of the month. So
we're gearing up for release, which is super fun. We're also going to be in Youngstown and Athens, Ohio, later this month as well.
Yeah.
So do you like being on the road? Do you like playing out?
Yeah, I think this is like our first Midwest tour since early 2020. And so we're just super excited. We've been able to see some friends and, that we haven't seen for like 2 years. And so that's been incredibly fun. And we really like the road life. I think we figure out like ways to do it that makes it a lot like more enjoyable. Like seeing friends, staying with friends helps a lot. And making sure we drink some good coffee. actually
like checking out the places that we go. We try to go to some local place or like walk around a little bit. And it's really fun. Like it's one of the great like bonuses, I guess, of doing music is you get to actually see a lot of, like right now, a lot of the US and
Yeah. And also meeting new people. Like a lot of these shows that we have coming up, we're playing with people that we've never met. And so I love meeting new artists and being able to play in new cities. It's really like that, a part of the dream, you know, like, of course it can be rough and driving, you know, 7 hours a day or whatever it is, but it's a lot of fun. And we know what to do in the car now. Like we kind of, you know, we take turns. We have a really good podcast. We have the Switch, you know, the Nintendo Switch with us.
Oh yes.
And,
Sure.
yeah.
Sure.
So we make it really enjoyable.
Do you have any plans to play overseas or maybe back home in Sweden?
Yeah, so we just got back from Sweden actually, where we had 3 shows here in April. So we definitely play in Sweden, and we're hoping to do more of that. John is actually applying for his like Swedish green card, like a permanent residence card.
Right.
And when he gets it, it's kind of the same thing, you know, he can't legally work over there. Like we can play some shows and stuff, but we can't really go on tour or do like anything proper. So as soon as he gets that
EU tour, like we really want to start doing that as well.
We're super excited.
Once we're more over there. Yeah.
I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy day.
Oh my gosh, thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh,
It's been so much fun.
It's our pleasure. So we've been talking to John and Amelie of 7000 Apart. We're looking forward to them coming into Dayton, but also if you've not, please check out their music. It's fantastic. John, Amelie, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
This has been great.